that you knew would only happen once. When these folks all returned home, they were tired but energized, drained but determined. Many people felt by going to Washington, they made history. When they came back, they had to make something of that history. Here now is a report by John London, who talked with some folks from Cincinnati who participated in the Million Man March. The question then and now, where do we go from here?
Cincinnatians who were there are now 500 miles and a full day away from the Million Man March, so it's time to reflect. A historic turning point, or merely a moment that returns Black America to business as usual? Alfred Cotton is an apartment manager, and he intends to stay in touch with those he met at the march.
A lot of black men left there with a direction and a purpose and something to do.
Spiritual cleansing is the way some are describing it, but now that the march is over, the question begs loudly. What now? Cincinnatians return to problems of staggering proportions. Teenage pregnancy, the drug culture, the lure of youth gangs. What's different this time?
We really need to come together and really do it. Instead of just keep talking about it, whether we're Baptists or whether we're Methodists or whether we're Muslims or whether we're Jews or whatever, we all need to come together and work together to do these things.
Businessman Steve Reese sees 4 specific changes as a result of this march. He believes all 4 will benefit Black and white America. He foresees a more aggressive attempt to increase the number of Black-owned businesses. Also, a stronger drive to register Black voters, especially as independents beholden to no particular party. He sees a greater emphasis now on family responsibility and a return to the church as a moral base. And as for what others should consider,
I think that whites ought to shop at African-American businesses, just like African-Americans buy from them. I think that the white community ought to also help participate in helping us make our communities better.
Reverend Damon Lynch tells me at minimum, our local neighborhoods now have many more messengers than they did prior to the march, and that white America, in its heart, understands what this is all about.
Talk show hosts who will frame it as some kind of separatist movement, and then you will have white America who buys into that. But the heart and the core of the message is that of responsibility, and I think at the heart, most white Americans understand that and accept that.
And that, of course, is the base from which you build.
Joining me now is Cincinnati journalist Jim Clingman. Jim was one of the faces in the crowd at the Million Man March. He shares his experience in a new book. He and Cincinnati photographer C. Smith have teamed up to tell a part of the Million Man March. It's called Faces in the Crowd, 1 in a Million. And welcome to the program.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Curtis.
You know, as I listen to that, it's interesting because John did that report one day after the Million Man March. And I guess the best place to start is, how far have we come from, which was October 17th when that report was done?
Right. Well, that's for a lot of people to say, but in my perspective, as soon as I got back, along with a lot of other black men, we began meeting at the Freeman Avenue Church of Christ up on Gilbert and Taft to follow up on some of the things that we had talked about prior to the Million Man March. We formed a lot of committees and took on a lot of plans and tasks that we felt would follow up on the things that had happened and things that were said at the Million Man March. Like you said, like Brother KZ Smith said in the opening, we need to come together now. We need to stop talking and do these things. I think over the past year, some progress has been made, but certainly not enough. There are some things that we should have done, that we should be doing, that we didn't do, and that we're not doing. And I look forward to the next year to make amends for that. I think that we fell somewhat short, but you know, even though we accomplished a lot of things, there's still a lot of work to do.
It is interesting because as I listened to Steve Reese, obviously the issue of economic empowerment was discussed then. It's still on the front burner now, but right here in Cincinnati, the one thing that we've done, and you've been real instrumental in that, is the African American Chamber of Commerce.
Right.
So we addressed that right off the bat, because coming back, you probably knew that was important.
Oh yeah, yeah, and that was one of my goals, even before the Million Man March. But I think because of the enthusiasm and the spirit that we developed from there, we were able to form this African American Chamber of Commerce. You see my button here. That's what this is. When you're inside the circle, you're supported on all sides. It's our logo. We've been up for 4 months now, and we do need to develop and maintain black businesses and to create more, certainly to create more, but we have to take care of the ones that we have now, and that means mutual support from the greater community too. But in that regard, I feel that we accomplished a great deal as far as forming the chamber, because certainly that was one of the goals. But there are other kinds of things that we need to do now that the chamber is on board in terms of coming closer together, like KZ said. We still have to practice what we preach.
Number two, we talked about, or at least Steve Reese mentioned, voter registration. And it is interesting how, once again, race matters in the presidential election. Both candidates have been forced to deal with the issue of really addressing the African-American vote, not taking it for granted. And we've seen that in this election year. How do you think we've done in terms of pulling people to the ballot box and getting them to register so far?
Well, I just heard a prediction yesterday on the news that there will probably be, I think somebody said 100 million people who will not vote or something. It was some ridiculous number. The prediction is that the voter turnout is going to be low because people are disinterested in this election, and the government is not doing what it's supposed to be doing for the people, so they've kind of opted out. But I say no. We need to play. We have to play in the system. We have to go vote. We need to register and vote, because there's no other way that we have to make any change. We have to get to the table first, and then we can make some change. But of course, that has to be grounded by economics. I think we just have to keep focus on that, because until we get that economic base together, even though we do vote, even though we do elect black officials, even though we do have some influence with politicians, we still have no power if we don't have economic power.
God works in mysterious ways, because the whole issue of the church, Steve mentioned people coming back to the church. The whole issue of the church bombings in 1996, and even though that was an issue in 95, it really didn't come to the front burner until 1996. And we dealt with it, which of course sometimes in tragedy people come back to a base. And so we did probably see more people coming back to church in 1996.
I think that is a definite trend. I've seen a lot of that, and I see in all of the meetings and all the organizations I meet with and belong to, I always see that. We first have to make sure that we're grounded spiritually. And I think it's an excellent trend. We have to have that basis. It's always been with us in the black community, and we need to maintain it. And I see it coming back in greater numbers.
His fourth thing, and I just find it interesting because he was right on the mark a year ago. The fourth thing is commitment to family. I mean, that's a given, but maybe we, and that was in part the purpose of the Million Man March, to rededicate ourselves to not only the family unit, individual family, but the family as a community. And I think we're seeing more of that. We're seeing that effort being made.
I think so, and like you said, the family is the focus, and we need to, as adults in our generation, be able to pass something on to our children, and we can't do that if we don't strengthen our families. Do what we're supposed to do as adults. You know, we complain about the kids doing all these things, but what are we doing to help change their behaviors?
Yeah, they only watch us.
That's right. That's exactly right.
Well, we're going to tell folks how they can pass along the book that you and C. Smith have come up with. We will do that in just a moment. That quote by Wilma Rudolph says, "When the sun is shining, I can do anything." And actually, I think that was the tone a year ago for the Million Man March. One person who attended that was Cincinnati journalist Jim Clingman. He joins me again as we reflect back on the Million Man March a year ago. Talk again, and I asked you this after you attended. Your personal experience as one person, one face in the crowd. How did it affect you personally?
In a word, overwhelming. It's hard to really describe it because if you weren't there, it seems that anything that you say as a person who was there is not enough. But it was overwhelming. I was proud. I was enthusiastic. I was sad. I was encouraged. I mean, there are a lot of different feelings that went through me throughout that whole day, and I was there the whole day from sun up to sundown. And it's just, you know, it left me full of feelings and thoughts, of course, but the feelings were just overwhelming. I mean, it's really hard to describe, to see and to feel the love and the concern and the caring that was demonstrated one to another by everyone there, everybody there. I mean, no matter what part of the mall I walked to, and I walked around the mall, I didn't just stay in one place. I mean, everybody had this attitude. It's like something came down from the sky and just descended on everybody and said, this is the way you're going to be, you know. It's like we were clones. It was unbelievable. But it was a great experience.
Yeah. C. Smith was there, and he's a well-known photographer throughout Cincinnati. I was reading in the book that he really did not plan. This was not a project that you guys set out on. No. He took his camera, as he would just about anywhere,
right,
and started taking pictures. Right. And we're putting up a few of the shots here. Tell us about how this all came about, that you then decided, well, let's sort of put this into a book, and you have some writings in there.
Well, we got back, I didn't even know C was there. I never even saw him. After the march, we just happened to be at his office one day talking, and I said, hey, you took some pictures. I just feel like we need to put something out on this. We started talking about a calendar and posters and all these other kinds of things. I said, no, we need to do a book, see. I'll do the writing. Let's use your pictures. We may need to get some more from Brother Ray Glover. He gave us some, and that was his picture on the last shot. He was kind enough to share his pictures with us. But you're right, we didn't go with the intention to do a book. We didn't even know that we were there. Each of us was there, and I had no idea that I would come back and write. But as George Fraser told me a couple of years ago, there's a book in everybody. In each of us, there's at least one book. This is my first. Matter of fact, I'm working on another one now.
Excellent.
But we had no plan to do it. We just came together, talked about it, and it happened out of that. And I think that's the beauty of it to me, because it was truly inspirational, not a commercial effort. It wasn't something, oh, we're going to come back and write this book and sell all these books. It's an inspirational thing. It's something that we really felt, something that we shared with 1 million other people at one moment in time, and it really conjured up some thoughts in me and some feelings in me that I didn't even know were there. And it made me come back with even more of a resolve. You know, I mean, you've been reading, I've been reading, writing this, a column on this for 3 years, but I came back with even more resolve to make some things happen in this community among black people to bring us closer together.
And then, you know, as journalists, and maybe I have a book in me too.
I'm sure you do, all the things you've done.
I don't know, but I guess I was pleased because as journalists, we often talk about this and we write books for other people, or we'll give someone else an idea, but sometimes you do have it within yourself to put it together.
Yeah.
I guess we should put up the number now, so just to start, and we'll put it up again. No, we're not going to put it up. Give me the number for people.
Well, if anyone would like to order the book or to talk to me about maybe doing some kind of promotion with the book, they can call me at 513-489-4132.
Okay.
I'm publishing this myself, but I want it to be out there. I want people to be able to have it on their cocktail tables, to show it to their children, to keep it in the family for years, and to be able to get something out of it similar to the feelings that went into it. I want to be able to pass that along, and I knew no other way to do that than with the pen.
And again, the number 513-489-4132. The book is called Faces in the Crowd, One in a Million, the Million Man March. Did you and C go through, I'm certain he had dozens of pictures.
Yeah, he had a lot of pictures. Yeah, he had a lot of pictures, and that's really, quite truthfully, what took us so long. We, trying to decide. I had written the pages, and we got together and tried to pick out the appropriate pictures that kind of matched up with the writing. And that's a long drawn out process. If you know photographers and artists, you know, they're very personal about their work, you know. So we had a lot of back and forth about that, but I think it's hitting at the right time. We had planned to put it out after the march, but then we said we'll wait, and now that the anniversary is coming up, we want to make sure the impetus is kept alive, that the interest is kept alive, because we think we have something here that is top quality, souvenir quality, something that we want to be in people's homes from, you know, forever. So I think we did the right thing, even though it took us a year, but that's okay.
That's okay.
Sometimes the best things take a long time.
That's true. When we come back, I want to talk a little bit more about some of the local efforts that have been taking place. You said folks have been meeting.
Right.
And it's important to update people on it.
All right.
We'll be back in a moment. Welcome back to the program. We are talking about a book that Jim Clingman and photographer C. Smith put together. It's about the Million Man March. The book is called The Million Man March, Faces in the Crowd, One in a Million. After the Million Man March, the African American Leadership Summit has been meeting on a regular basis.
Right.
Tell people about that, because I think a lot of people might see the Million Man March as an isolated incident that might not have carried on. But talk about what's been going on.
Oh yeah, all over the country there were local chapters of the National African American Leadership Summit who were meeting before the march to organize the people who wanted to go and to kind of set the local agenda. And they've been meeting every week since the Million Man March. I think they went to meetings every 2 weeks sometime in April, but they've been regularly meeting to deal with some of the things that came out of the march. And there are other groups around town that are forming efforts around the Million Man March as well.
Do you think that we'll have another one? I noted at the top that this is the type of event, when you see it, you know it's only going to happen once. And as a matter of fact, we were looking at a book downstairs, and we flipped through the pages and we saw the March on Washington.
Right.
And you realize, and even though there have been some anniversary marches,
that's right,
there's only
you can't
one.
You can't do this but once. There may be some other things to follow up, some other marches, but this is a one-time thing. I don't think it even should be tried to be duplicated. If you do something else, that's fine, but this was a very special thing. Everything was perfect that day. You don't have that but once in a lifetime. Once in a lot of lifetimes, you don't have that but once. So I'm satisfied with the fact that we did it. It's on us now to take the inspiration that we got from it, and to move on and do what we know needs to be done. Like KZ said, we need to stop the talk and walk the walk now. We know what we need to do. That was kind of the rallying point for us to come together in body and in spirit and in mind to say, hey, yeah, let's do this. So now it's up to us, you know. I mean, we can't keep getting the shots in the arm, you know, oh yeah, tomorrow I'm going to do this. We need to do it now.
What about the way the media? I know that initially the media gave the Million Man March a lot of attention. But in the month since then, do you think the media has done a pretty decent job at following up, or have we just sort of forgotten about it?
No, I don't think the media have done a good job at that. There have certainly been isolated stories and isolated depictions of the march, and it's always been couched in what are they doing, where are they now, what are the marchers doing now, did they do what they said they were going to do? But as far as the positive aspects, I don't think there's been a lot of that. And that's you know, that's okay with me, because again, it's up to us. It's up to us to take care of our own destiny. We can't rely on other people to validate us, and we don't need to do that. What we did validated ourselves, and I think what we did reached way back, as it says in the book, to generations long before us. I could just see our fathers and forefathers looking down on us and saying, hey, you guys finally came together, you finally did it, you know, we're proud of you. That's the kind of feeling that I had. I don't need anything else. I don't need validation from outside sources or anything. It starts with within the individual. You have to make a commitment in yourself, like we did there, to say, I'm going to go back and I'm going to do something. And you can't lose that focus. You cannot lose the focus. That's the way I feel about it. I don't need further validation. You know, I just keep doing what I know is right.
Mm-hmm. I would imagine with Spike Lee's movie coming out, the first part of November, I guess?
16th. Comes out on the 16th.
That's right.
The day of the march.
It sure does. For some strange reason, I was thinking it wasn't going to come out until after that. But with that, that's going to heighten conversation.
Sure.
Too, and we were able to get some background on it and see little snippets at the National Association of Black Journalists convention a month or so ago. So I guess we'll pose a question as we wrap up here. Where do we go from this point? Now a year later, where do we go from here?
Yeah. With this book, if a person purchases this book, they will get a 10-point plan from me. Just my opinion. There are a lot of other people out here who know some things that we need to be doing, but I have 10 points, 10 specific points that I wrote to give to people who buy the book. And I won't list all of them, but it begins with education. We have to educate ourselves on a lot of different things, political structure, economics, a lot of things. We need to take care of our youth. We need to have we need to build institutions, educational institutions. We need to have those. We've turned over our children to other people to educate, and we wonder why we have problems. You know, there are a lot of things that we need to be doing from here. We haven't, this is just the beginning. We haven't done nearly enough yet. We can't sit back on our laurels and say, well, we went to Washington and had 1 million people and that was fine, and you know, let's sit back and look at it. Now's the time that the work begins. The chamber was an outgrowth of that, and there are a lot of other things that we need to do. So I hope that everybody will take that spirit, keep that spirit that we had there, and move and really do some things this year. And certainly I'm going to be out there trying to do what I can do to make some things happen.
You mentioned educating our kids and building institutions. It's a little ironic because this week marks the 140th, well actually all year has been the 140th anniversary for Wilberforce University up in Wilberforce, Ohio. And as we think about some of the problems that Central State confronted, these are institutions where we still, it comes right back to putting our money where our mouth.
You got that right. You got that right. Yeah, it's all about economics. It has to be. You have to have that as a grounding. Education, we have to take care of our crime problem. We wonder where our kids are doing all these kinds of things. We have to get involved. And I have 10 points. I'm sure you could come up with 10. Everybody could come up with 10 things that we could do. But the important thing is to come together to consolidate those and move and get some of those things done.
Yeah, I appreciate you being here. As we close out, let me just at least put up the number one more time for folks interested in obtaining the book. It's called Faces in the Crowd, 1 in a Million. If you want more information, the number is 513-489-4132. That is by photographer C. Smith of Cincinnati and Cincinnati journalist Jim Clingman. Thanks a million.
Thank you, Curtis, for being here.
All right. We'll be back in a moment. Next week, I'm going to put up the title of the book where you can get all those quotes because everyone asked me about them. Well, that does it for the program today. Thanks for joining me. I hope you can tune in again next week. And of course, I'll see you throughout the week at 5:30. I'm Curtis Fuller. Have a nice day.
Oh, it is, trust me.